Howdy everybody, Mike Pfeiffer. Today we're going to do a little video on how to do those. The scenic backdrops back there. The two that I'm doing right now are being put in after the fact. Okay, in other words, I have my background mountain there and I'm putting it in between over here. But I'm going to show you number one what I do. Well, you can obviously see that I cut them out and use my own sky. That's the first step. Next thing I'm going to cover with you is what I glue it up there with, and then the following thing I'm going to do is how I blend that back into the background. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and let's take a look. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you here is, pardon me for a minute here, let me get in position. Obviously we have cut this off of our sky, and in doing so, let me turn this around. In doing so, we have cut off some of the trees. And what I'm going to do here, let me see if I can get organized in the camera. What I'm going to do here, and the reason I saved this paper, is because I'm going to get some cheap acrylics and I'm going to try and match these paints. And then I'm going to paint the tops of these trees back in, as well as these little nub trees over here that are on the hillsides and so forth. What I'm going to do is just show you how to match the acrylic paints and then paint that stuff back on once you've applied the backdrop. That's what we're going to cover. Let me show you how and what we use for glue on these. Okay, this is what I use to hold up my backdrop scenery. Now, I don't know how this would work on very large photo backdrops. I don't know what they recommend. But for small sections that I do, and the pieces that I cut out of most of the instant horizon stuff I do, or if I cut a picture out of a magazine or something like that that I want to apply to my backdrop, this is what I use. And this is Mini Graphics Wallpaper Mucilage. And mucilage sounds pretty disgusting, and it actually looks pretty disgusting. But it's designed for dollhouse wallpaper. You can find it, this particular one I got at Hobby Lobby, and you can see it was $6.99. The instructions are on the back, but I'm just going to show you what it looks like and show you what it is, or how I put it on the paper and what it looks like on the paper. And I think before I show you the application of the mucilage, I will say that I do all my cutting on a piece of old scrap cardboard, and I use an extremely sharp X-Acto knife to make the hill whatever I want. And you can even cut out more scenery than this if you desire. In fact, let me pull this down. You can see here that I cut off this hill because I didn't need it. You can do anything you want as far as cutting off stuff. But I cut on a piece of cardboard. And now let me show you how I apply the mucilage. Okay, this is what the mucilage, or paste if you prefer, looks like. That is the consistency of it. It's very thick. And if I use a brush like this, just a cheap brush to apply it, and you stick it in there, and you can see that that's the consistency of it. It's not really fluid and it's not really solid, somewhere in between. But let me show you how I spread it out on here. And I do this on my same cardboard. And I start by working towards the edge. And I put it on in about that consistency. I hope you can see that on camera. Enough to cover all of the paper, okay? And you do this over the whole edge. You do it all over the whole piece that you're gonna do. You just keep applying and applying until the whole surface has an even coating and is just wet with this stuff. And try and make sure you get enough of it at the edge, because you're gonna want it to stick at the edge, otherwise it's gonna roll on you. And that's basically it. And as you move, you can move the paper away from where you've you've got some on the cardboard. And if you should happen to get it on the front, don't worry, because it wipes off very easily with a clean sponge and water, okay? And when we put it up, I'll show you what we do. Now, of course, this is upside down, and it's going onto a piece of cardboard. But we've just glued this little area right here. Well, actually we've glued an area over here. I didn't get it on the paper straight, but let me get a tool. Okay, now that I've flipped this over and I've laid it down on the cardboard, our glue is in an area that starts here and goes off the camera, but in fact, let me move it in a little bit. After you get it up on the wall, the idea is just to work it with a plain old plastic scraper and work to the outside edge, and that will get your edge stuck down. You can see that we're taking glue out of there. And basically you do that over the whole piece, and you can see that I've gotten glue on the face of this and on the edge of the cardboard. But let me show you what we're going to do. Once this, and this, you can get this off even after it dries. There's no rush on this. It's a water-soluble product. So even if you get it on the surface of what you're doing or on the backdrop or skyboard itself, you can still get it off of there. So let's check that out. Okay, this is not a real clean sponge nor a new sponge, but all I want to demonstrate is that we can get the mucilage off of the paper itself. If I wipe this down, and if I wipe the cardboard down, and I realize that this is cardboard, not masonite or painted masonite or anything, I believe in this picture you can see we're getting some bubbling here. And all we have to do is just go back and try and squeegee those bubbles out, okay? But normally you wouldn't get that because we would have given the mucilage time to actually dry. So you usually don't get the bubbling effect. We're doing it too soon. But anyway, you can see how the edge sticks down, and you can see on the edge of the cardboard how we've removed the glue. So if this was painted backdrop, you wouldn't have your glue showing. And once you've gotten to this point right here and you've got it all stuck down, as we have this small section here, you just let it dry, and then you would do your cleanup. So now I'm going to try and get into matching colors that are on this, cheap acrylic colors on this, and see if we can demonstrate how you would paint something onto your backdrop. Okay, what I did is, this is just a butter dish. You can use anything. And I know I'm going to sound like Bob Ross, but anyway, this is just a dark brown color. The only thing I don't have on here is white. I just realized I need white on here. But I've got several colors of green, and I've got some gray, black, brown. And if you notice, that's basically all the colors that are in these treetops. So if I want to reproduce those treetops, I've got just about everything here. So let me put a little bit of white on here, and we'll try mixing up some of these colors and painting. And I realize we're doing this upside down, but I'm going to try and paint down on these tree trunks just to show you that you can do it the opposite way, of course. And we'll do a little example over here on the side, maybe, of the other direction. But let me get some white on here, and we'll give this a shot. Another thing I might say is, too, that I forgot to mention, is that you need kind of an assortment of brushes. You can see that I have a couple of fan brushes. You can get brushes cheap anywhere, Hobby Lobby or anywhere. You need at least one fairly fine brush, some medium brushes, and some heavy brushes. I generally don't use a lot of the heavy brushes, but you'll see what I use when I start working on these trees, okay? Okay, the first thing I'm going to start off with is the trunk of the tree. because we're going down the other way, but we could just as well be going up. In fact, we'll do it up as though we're doing the top of a tree. Maybe that would be the best idea. And you can see that some of that's really light brown, and I've got really dark brown on here, and you can see that the dark brown is a little darker than that, even the color of that trunk. So what I'm going to do is just mix a little white in there and a little bit of brown, and you just goof with this until you get the color right. And I can see that it needs a little black, maybe a little too much black. Now I've got a very similar color to the trunk here, and I hope you can see this, I'm gonna work upside down here, but I'm gonna just continue this trunk right on up, okay? Like it's almost like it's a mirror image. This trunk over here is very dark for the most part, but we could make it dark and light. It doesn't really matter because you don't see that much of the trunk. So I'm going to mix up a little different shade here, and we're going to start right on the paper, and we're going to work our way up. Okay. Now the trunk on the other side is very light, and I'm not sure that I can get a real light brown out of this, because what I would need is a little bit of orangish color. Let me get a little bit of an orangish color here and see if I can help that out a little bit. And I know this is really going to look orange, and it doesn't take much of that to get this tree trunk color, but hold on just a second here. We're going to goof with it. And like I say, you know, you're not losing anything. This is cheap acrylic. You just mix it until it looks right, okay? Or even close. Nature is never perfect, okay? So you don't need to be perfect. This is not glued down very well, but we're gonna continue from right here on the bottom, and we're gonna continue on up with the trunk of this tree. Okay? Now we've got a replica of basically the three trunks of the trees. Now we're gonna start going into the greens, and since the greens are pretty dark, and I don't even have any water here to rinse my brush off in, which is no big deal, but let me just try and get some green going here, some dark green. And basically we're just gonna go in here and put this in. And I'm just kind of dabbing it, you know, dabbing the brush in there. Boy, this does sound like Bob Ross. But you get the idea. And for right now, we're going to stick with one dark color, okay? And I realize that, and like I said, I'm going upside down here. But so far, you know, I've only used one brush. And we can do almost everything we want with this brush. Got a little too black there. I think you might be able to see that. So we're going to add some more color to it. We're going to add a little bit more green to it up here towards the top.
Sure.
And I'll be right back. Okay, gang, sorry for the interruption. I have some tree trimmers here, as well as the phones out here in the garage for the shop. But nevertheless, you can see how we're progressing with this tree. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take, and I've taken this opportunity to get a little bit of water, by the way. But we're going to take and do some black underneath some of the tree leaves or branches. And I'm going to finish that up and I'll be right back. Okay, I've added some black, and it looks like to me I need some brown in there. So I'm going to speckle some brown around in there. And these trees are, the trees in the picture here are pretty full. So we're going to add quite a bit more brown. Now the last thing I'm going to do on this particular tree, and you don't want to spend all kinds of time on your stupid backdrop, I mean this isn't a Picasso or anything, is we're going to put some light green, and you can see that there's some light green in there on the tops of the branches. And when I say top, it really doesn't matter as long as that light green is in there. You know what I'm saying? That I guess what I am trying to say is that with the placement of the color, how much you put of it and stuff really isn't going to matter, because you're going to be pretty far away from it. But now I think you can see I would be happy with that tree. And we've only cut off 3 here. So I can really run through pretty fast, and we'll add in these other trees. And it doesn't take a genius, it just takes an ability to even come close to the colors that you're trying to replicate, okay? So we're going to come back in again with our black and our brown and our white. And we're going to mix up a little bit of that in advance here, just to speed this up, which I'm actually creating more of a gray, so we're going to have to add a lot more black to it. So anyways, now what I'm going to do is wash my brush out real fast, just a little bit of water. I'm going to come back to this dark green, and I'm going to start putting in some, I need to get some, too much water on the brush. But anyway, I need to get some green and start putting some green in on this tree over here. And like I say, you just kind of splotch it in, and it's not important really. The effect will be there. You can see that my paint was getting a little bit thin there, so I just have to add a little more paint. By the way, since I have the shop phones out here, we may get interrupted again at some point, but that's neither here nor there. But now you get the idea there. We're gonna, since we got the green going, we're gonna go back over here and do this tree. And this tree we're gonna have interfering with the other tree. And I hope you guys don't find this too intimidating or anything. I mean, I have guys that say they can't hardly paint anything, but I can't either. In reality, that's the house phone. It's just a matter of how does it look to you, okay? In other words, how does that look to you? It looks fine to me. So we're going to clean the brush out. Now we're going to take some of our black mix that we've made, our dark brown and black mix. We're going to go under the branches, or anywhere actually, because it replicates shadows under the branches. Now we're going to come back with our light green and put some light green in. Let me get some water off of that. Now we're going to come in and put some, I got too much on the brush there, but we're going to get some light green and apply it to the tops. And like I say, and like you're seeing here, you don't need to spend hours on this. It's really not necessary. People are only going to see the colors and how they blend in, not the detail. Now what we're going to do is, it looks to me like it's a little bit on the darkish green side at this particular point. So what I'm going to do is I have some even lighter green here. And I'm going to do just a little tiny bit of light green in spots. Just the dabbing of light green gives it more impression of detail. Okay, the more different colors you use, the more impression of detail you have. When that detail really isn't there, and you can see that it's only taken me just a couple of seconds to put it on there. And there you have it. I mean, it's not an exact replica of what's here, but when you look at it from 3 feet away, and this continues into your painted sky, no one knows the difference. So anyway, that's how I touch up scenery. I also have been known to paint out scenery, and I can certainly give you a little example of that here. Okay, this is going to be kind of like really fast, and it's going to be really ugly, but I don't have a lot of time in the video. But say these trees, the lower part of these trees, I was adjoining to a hill here that was this brown color right here. Okay, say I had a hill here, and we'll just make a hill here. Okay, say that I had this hill here. And you can see how easy it is to paint that in. Anyway, we wanted to get rid of these trees because this hill came down here and went across here. And we extended these trees up. It's pretty easy. You just go in and paint out what you don't want. We'll just say we're going to follow this line here of the mountain. And I hope this is making sense, but we're just trying to paint out stuff that we don't want in there, okay? But I just go in and I paint it all over all of it, okay? And like I say, this is kind of a hurried effort. And we could even paint up on our paint stuff we've already painted, and that would even lend more credit to the fact that we've overlapped what we've already got on the background. And this could be rock. And you see that all it is just color and dabbing. And of course, if I was doing this on the layout and I had something in a backdrop, or if I had real scenery already there, of course you're trying to match the color. So here I have no color to match to, but I think you get the idea that we could be doing that. Okay, I'd go in with a little black, and even if I can get this paintbrush dry enough on this cardboard and get it clean enough. Let me see if I can get enough water off of here. I could go back in even in my greens, and I could stipple in foliage and blend our foliage with what I've already painted. And I made this little error right here, and I forgot I was going to show you something too. Let me see if I can get my brush dried off again. And this brush is a little on the large side. Let me try this. I got one that's a little smaller here. Say that on our backdrop we had little trees in here, okay? And these trees, unlike these trees were just nubbed up here along the edge, and we cut them off because we couldn't cut around every one of them. What you can do is get brown or green, or I mean, yeah, you could actually use green. You could use any color, whatever color suits whatever you've cut off. And you can actually go in and you know, you can kind of put those nubs back in just by, once again, this is not a very good brush, but by going back in and dabbing along the edge of what you're doing here. This is, let me just mix a little green in here. And you can see just by dabbing and dragging this somewhat, you don't really drag it, you're dabbing it. But even at that, you know, you can see that we can create more trees even over what I've already painted here. And I'm using a dark green now because that's kind of the base color of our trees here. And see, even just by dabbing a paintbrush, so you can create the illusion that you have more trees than what you had in the beginning. So anyway, I know this seems like some kind of art form and you can't do it, but I would recommend just give it a try. As you can see, this is a scrap. So we've taken from making a mirror of 3 trees to making a reverse and painting over the bottoms of those trees and made it something else. So never be afraid to paint on your backdrops. Never be afraid to paint on a pre-printed backdrop. All it requires is just a pretty good assortment of acrylic colors. And here's, let me get out this one. I think you can see that one. This is black. And the only other color I used here, actually I used 2 other colors. The white, which is here in the background, and another brown. Which, let me move that guy forward. And there you can see. I know that's not a very good picture, but you get the idea. I mean, out of 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 colors, and not including that orange color, this one, so 9 colors, we were pretty much able to create this. And what I would recommend, if you go to the Hobby Lobby or wherever you go to get your acrylic paints, just pick out a selection. You know, all you need is just a selection of greens and a selection of browns. Here's kind of a idea of the greens that were used. And, you know, you can pick out a selection of browns. What earth colors? Basically earth colors. Yellow, you need a little bit of yellows, you need a little bit of oranges for fall colors and stuff. But anyway, let's move on into the train room, and I'll show you how I applied this on my layout here. Okay guys, here's a backdrop that I added in here, and you can see, maybe, hang on a minute, let me get my fat finger in there. You can see that I've already done the top of this tree, but it doesn't quite match. You can see that I put the trunks of those trees in. You can see that I've done some trees over here, and you can see how it sort of blends in. What we're going to try and do is thin out some paint and keep on coming down a little bit so that what I painted blends into the tree that's painted on the backdrop. So this is what it looks like right now, and I'll get a shot of it here in just a little bit when I'm done. Okay gang, you can see that I painted in the tops of all the trees, and I think maybe even right over in here you might be able to see there's a dead tree, a gray tree, and I even took that up into the sky over there. Obviously some of this over here is going to be covered up by whatever ground form I put in here. In fact, a lot of it's probably going to be covered up with whatever land form goes in front of this. But the point of it is I have a backdrop back there. And while the paint colors don't match exactly, 99.9% of the people are going to be looking at the layout and not paying attention to the fact the colors don't match. The colors don't match in nature. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit and we'll take a look. Okay. I think you can see here how that all came out. And let me see if I can zoom in enough to get that, the other zoom out, zoom in rather, that gray tree. Every little detail counts. But you don't need to go overboard, because if I step back here to where I'm standing now, this is what you see. So there's no sense in going overboard on the detail. And people have asked me about how to do this and so forth, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it helps you in some way. And for now, that's about it. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the little how-to video. I know it's a little overwhelming for some folks, but you don't know if you can do it until you try. And I would recommend, if you want to accomplish something like that, cut a picture out of a magazine, put it on a piece of cardboard, or blue foam or something, and paint up onto the foam. Paint up, you know, just try it. Just give it a try. Try getting, you probably only need 10 or 15 acrylic colors, and you can sometimes get them for 50 cents a piece at Hobby Lobby or any of those places. Sometimes they're $1 a piece. But you're going to need them during the course of building a layout anyway. So don't be afraid to buy a few acrylic paints, a few paint brushes, and give that a shot, even if you just do it on something you're going to throw out. You don't know if you can do it until you try it. And I would recommend that you all try it, because if this guy can do it, you can do it. And that's it for today. And as usual, thanks for watching.